So nobody ever started trying to learn a musical instrument, like the guitar, for example, by trying to play Cliffs of Dover. We never learned to dance in a dance competition. When you were trying to learn a new skill, we always simplify it first. And the same thing should be going for our dog behavior. When we've got a problem with a type of behavior, we tend to focus on that end result. We tend to think, I need to be able to walk my dog past other dogs. I need to be able to let my dog off the lead and get them back. I need to be able to go out and see and go to the shops. I need to be able to do things. So those are our kind of goals. But if we try to achieve going out for 2 hours when we've got a dog with separation anxiety, we are really setting our dog up for failing. They are not going to be able to go from panicking when you're not home to being on their own for 2 hours in just a short amount of training. We need to keep things really simple. We need to simplify everything we're doing. And that could mean making it slower. It could mean breaking it down into parts. It could be that we're changing the way things sound. Maybe we're turning the volume up or the volume down. Whatever it is that we're working on, we need to find a way of making that experience that our dog is trying to avoid when we're trying to change their behavior. We need to find a way of making that experience easier to cope with for them, so that we can teach them what we want them to know and then piece it all together again and then build them back up to something that's useful. So if we're working on separation anxiety, there's no point in us trying to create an environment and then going out for 2 hours to see how they do. We need to see, can they cope with me walking to the front door? Can they cope with me walking out the front door? Maybe part of the separation anxiety is they don't like being in a crate, so we need to teach them how to settle themselves outside of a crate. We wouldn't expect them to learn how to do that and cope with being on their own, and also cope with listening to sounds outside and everything else at the same time. We would have to break all these little parts up, work on them all separately, and then we would start putting them back together. If we're trying to bring people into our home, we wouldn't just wait until the doorbell rang and then at that point then decide that we're going to try and get our dog to do a sit stay when he's never done a sit stay before. And if he has, he certainly hasn't done it long enough for you to walk to a front door and back. We're not going to expect him to suddenly do that. We're not going to expect him to suddenly be able to calm himself down. We haven't taught him how to be calm yet. We haven't taught him how to change his emotion from being overexcited to being calm. We've never rewarded him for calm behavior before. And then we've never taught him not to jump up on people. So when your auntie or your granny comes through the front door and your dog's jumping all around, we can't expect him on that first day to suddenly change all of these things at the same time. We have to break that down into parts. We have to stop the doorbell being such a powerful trigger. We need to desensitize that. We need to teach that sit stay, and we need to get them used to sitting and staying in the right place so that you can walk to and from the front door within that time period. Then in a separate thing, we need to teach him to be calm when people come in. We need to teach him that he's not allowed to jump up. We need to teach him how to respond. Maybe he needs a toy, perhaps we need to change the way that the doorbell sounds altogether and start from scratch. Whatever it is, we need to break this training down into lots of really small pieces and work on them one by one, keeping it nice and easy for him. And then once we've mastered all the little pieces, then we start to ramp up the difficulty. We start putting them together and we start building a sequence back together again. And before then, we start adding in a real person coming in. You test it and test it and test it, and you keep on practicing it. Once we've got that right, then we can start adding in actual people coming to the door. Before that, we maybe just have stooges come to the door, or maybe we don't even do that. We just knock on the inside, because that's probably enough just to let our dog know that we're going to start the doorbell training protocol, that behavior sequence that we've been working on. It doesn't have to be the front door. Maybe we're talking about recall training. So we start somewhere where there's no distractions. We start on a short lead so that they're not too far away from us when we call them. We don't wait until they've started to sniff the ground and they're really, really engrossed in it. We get the best treat possible. So we make it as easy as possible for them, and we just get them doing lots of tiny, tiny little recalls. We build their confidence up. We teach them what the trick is. And then we can start making it harder. We can go to a different place. We can go to a more distracting place. Maybe they like to sniff in long grass. So we start on the short grass, and once they've got the hang of it, then maybe we go to the long grass and try it there. We have to keep simplifying things, and we level up one bit at a time. So we don't start learning how to play the musical instrument by playing the most difficult piece there is. We start with our scales, we practice them over and over, then we play the annoying little songs that are very repetitive but simple to play, get used to playing. We do it slowly, we take our time, and then as we get better, we start to play at full speed. We start to be able to play more difficult pieces. You know, we rely less on learning scales and we learn more from actually playing, and eventually then become really good, and this becomes a habit that we're doing, so we don't have to think about what we're doing. And that's what we want for our dogs. We don't want them to have to think about what's happening, and I don't want you to have to think about what's happening as well. With practice, you'll both become instinctual at what you need to do. Perhaps if you're working on things like the Hoover, you know, how do we simplify that? Well, we could maybe have the Hoover just stationary in the room. Maybe we could simplify it by not having it switched on, and just moving it around while it's not on. Maybe putting the plug in and out is a trigger for your dog. Maybe pushing the Hoover end down so that the handle is at an angle that you can use. Maybe that's a trigger for your dog. Maybe it makes a beeping noise when it starts, you know. All of these things, we can break all of these little parts down and work on them all separately, and then put them all back together again. And our dog will feel supported, he'll know what to do, he'll be successful, we can reward him. And that's how we teach our dog to learn something new. And that's how we teach a habit, because there's no point in trying to make it hard for him. He'll not enjoy that training, he'll resist it, he'll not be interested in doing things with us because we've made it just too hard. Anything you're trying to learn that's too hard, you have to break it down. And that's what we want to do for our dogs. So that's my message today, is whatever you're working on, break it down into parts, slow it down, reduce the volume. If you need to make some distance from it, then do that. Moving away from something that's quite distracting reduces its level of distraction, so our dogs will cope much better when we're further away from something than when they're up close. But however you can, make things simple, break it down into parts, and when he's good at each piece, put it back together again, bring it back up to full speed, and then you can start making it harder and harder and adding back into those distractions. I hope that helps. Good luck with your training. Take care for now. Bye bye.